Captain Lee Ji-won's boots echoed against the polished metal floor as he stepped through the massive sliding doors of Terror Prime Medical Station. The journey from the Kepler 440 to Colony had taken 3 weeks aboard a cramped transport vessel, and his simple brown jacket bore the wrinkles and dust of interstellar travel. His black hair was slightly disheveled, and the fatigue lines round his eyes spoke of sleepless nights spent reviewing medical reports during the long voyage through hyperspace. The medical station stretched before him like a gleaming cathedral of glass and steel, suspended in the void between two gas giants. Through the transparent aluminum windows, the swirling purple and gold clouds of Titan 7 created a breathtaking backdrop. Automated medical drones buzzed overhead, carrying supplies between floors, while holographic displays showed patient information in dozens of alien languages. This was humanity's most advanced medical facility, serving patients from across the galaxy. Lee Ji-won paused to adjust his worn leather satchel, the same one he had carried during the Void Swarm Wars. 5 years ago, inside were the classified reports that had brought him here, disturbing accounts of patients being turned away, of medical staff resigning in protest, of a station that was supposed to represent humanity's compassion becoming something else. Entirely near the central reception area, station manager Park Sunny stood behind the curved desk that projected holographic patient charts into the air around her. Her pristine white uniform bore the golden insignia of senior medical administration, and her perfectly styled hair caught the artificial sunlight streaming through the station's windows. She had been reviewing the morning's patient roster when she noticed the man in civilian clothes approaching. Park Sun-mi's expression immediately hardened. She had seen his type before, refugees from the outer colonies, displaced workers from mining stations, veterans who had fallen on hard times. They always came here expecting free treatment, thinking their service entitled them to charity. The medical station had a reputation to maintain, and that meant keeping the undesirable elements away from their wealthy patients. "Excuse me," she called out sharply, her voice cutting through the ambient hum of medical equipment. "This is a restricted medical facility. If you're looking for a charity care, the refugee center is on level 7. Lee Ji-won stopped walking and turned to face her. His dark eyes remained calm, though something flickered behind them, a hardness that spoke of battles fought among distant stars. "I'm here for an inspection, actually." Park Sun-mi's laugh was like breaking glass. Several nearby medical staff members looked up from their work, sensing the tension in the air. The security drone hovering near the ceiling swiveled its sensors toward the conversation. "An inspection," she repeated mockingly. "Let me guess, you're some kind of undercover investigator. Maybe a journalist looking for a scandal." She stepped closer, her voice rising. "I've dealt with your kind before. Troublemakers who think they can waltz in here and cause problems for honest people trying to do their jobs." The medical station's main lobby had grown quiet. Patients waiting for treatment watched the confrontation unfold, while medical staff pretended to focus on their work while straining to listen. Through the windows, a sleek medical transport ship was docking, bringing injured miners from the asteroid belt colonies. Lee Ji-won's voice remained steady. "Ma'am, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding," Park Sun-mi snapped, "is you thinking you belong here. This facility serves the elite of human space. Diplomats, corporate executives, military officers of rank. Not." She gestured dismissively at his clothes. "Whatever you are." A young nurse named Kim Min-ho, who had been organizing medical supplies nearby, felt his stomach clench. He had seen this scene play out too many times before. Good people, desperate people, turned away because they didn't look the part. He wanted to speak up, but knew it would cost him his job. "Security," Park Sun-mi called out suddenly, her voice echoing through the vast lobby. "We have another delusional vagrant in the main lobby." Someone who thinks he's here to inspect us, too. Security guards in black uniforms began moving toward them, their boots clicking against the floor. One carried a neural disruptor, standard equipment for dealing with unruly patients or protesters. The security drone descended from the ceiling, its red scanning beam sweeping over Lee Ji-won's body, checking for weapons or contraband. Round the lobby, conversation stopped entirely. Even the automated medical announcements seemed to pause, as if the station's artificial intelligence was watching the drama unfold. The air recycling system hummed softly, mixing the scents of disinfectant and ozone. Lee Ji-won stood perfectly still, his hands at his sides. There was something in his posture, a quiet confidence that didn't match his humble appearance. It was the bearing of someone who had commanded starships in the depths of space, who had made life and death decisions while alien creatures swarmed round human colonies. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "I really think you should reconsider your approach here." But Park Sun-mi was already waving the security guards forward, her face flushed with righteous anger. She had no idea that she was about to make the biggest mistake of her career, one that would echo through the medical station and beyond, changing everything about how humanity cared for its own among the stars. The two security guards moved closer, their heavy boots creating a rhythmic thud against the station's polished floor. Guard Captain Han Seok had his hand resting on his null disruptor, while his partner activated a portable containment field generator. The device hummed to life, creating a shimmering blue barrier that could instantly trap any troublemaker. Lee Ji-won watched them approach with the same calm expression he had worn while facing down Void Swarm battle cruisers in the Proxima system. The security drone overhead buzzed lower, its scanning beam painting red lines across his chest as it searched for weapons or illegal modifications. "Sir, please step away from the reception area," Guard Captain Han Seok said firmly. "Station Manager Park has requested your removal." Instead of backing down, Lee Ji-won slowly reached into his worn leather jacket. Park Sun-mi tensed, expecting him to pull out some kind of weapon or fake credentials. The gathered crowd of medical staff and patients held their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. What emerged from his jacket was a small crystal card, no bigger than his thumb. It looked ordinary enough, just another piece of standard identification that every citizen carried. But when Lee Ji-won pressed his thumb to its surface, everything changed. The crystal erupted in a brilliant holographic display that expanded above their heads like a miniature galaxy. Golden letters spelled out his full name, rank, and source recorded in flowing script that seemed to dance in the air. The display showed his face in perfect three-dimensional detail, along with biometric data that matched his current appearance exactly. But it was the military decorations that made everyone in the lobby gasp. The Void Swarm campaign medal floated in the air, its purple and silver design recognizable to anyone who had lived through the war. Next to it was the Star of Terror, humanity's highest military honor, awarded to only 12 people in galactic history. The defense of Kepler citation rotated slowly, showing the battle where he had saved 3 million colonists from alien extermination. Guard Captain Han Seok's null disruptor clattered to the floor as his hands went limp. He had served in the war himself as a young private aboard a transport vessel. He knew exactly what those medals meant. This man hadn't just fought in the war, he had won it. But the final piece of information made Park Sun-mi's face drain of all color. At the bottom of the holographic display, in official Terra Prime Medical Corporation fonts, were the words, "Board Chairman, effective immediately, security clearance, absolute." The medical station's artificial intelligence system recognized the credentials instantly. Warning lights began flashing throughout the lobby as automated security protocols activated. Every screen in the facility displayed the same message: Board chairman on station. All department heads report immediately. Park Sunmi's legs nearly gave out beneath her. She gripped the edge of her desk, watching as the holographic display continued to rotate above Li Jiwon's head. Round them, the whispers started like ripples in a pond, spreading outward through the crowd of onlookers. "That's the ghost of Kepler," whispered Dr. Yunmira, a trauma surgeon who had just finished a 12-hour shift. She had heard stories about the mysterious captain who had appeared out of nowhere during the war's darkest hour, leading a ragtag fleet of human ships against impossible odds. "He saved my brother's colony," added Nurse Kim Minho, his voice filled with awe. "The Void Swarm had surrounded Titan Base for 3 months. Everyone thought they were dead. Then he showed up with 5 battleships and somehow broke through their lines." The security drone overhead had stopped its threatening scans and was now projecting a respectful blue light round Li Jiwon, the kind reserved for visiting dignitaries and high-ranking officials. The containment field generator powered down. With a soft whine, Li Jiwon looked directly at Park Sunmi, his dark eyes holding the same intensity that had once stared down alien hive queens across the vacuum of space. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded entire starfleets, who had made decisions that affected billions of lives. I didn't know," Park Sunmi stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. The confident station manager who had been so quick to judge and dismiss had vanished, replaced by someone who suddenly realized the magnitude of her mistake. "No, you didn't," Li Jiwon replied evenly, his voice cutting through the ambient noise of the medical station like a laser through armor plating. "And that's exactly the problem we need to discuss." He gestured toward the holographic display, which was now showing patient complaints, staff resignation letters, and incident reports, all the evidence he had been gathering during his 3-week journey from the outer colonies. Conference room. 1 hour. "Bring your department heads," he continued, his tone leaving no room for argument. It was the same voice that had coordinated humanity's defense against the Void Swarm, that had rallied broken fleets and inspired desperate colonists to keep fighting when all hope seemed lost. Guard Captain Han Seok and his partner quickly backed away, their faces red with embarrassment. They both snapped to attention, offering crisp military salutes that Li Jiwon acknowledged with a slight nod. The security drone rose back to its patrol altitude, now broadcasting an honor guard formation rather than a threat assessment. The crowd in the lobby began to disperse, but not before many of them had taken photos or recordings of the holographic display. Within minutes, the news would spread throughout the station and beyond, reaching every corner of human space where people remembered the war and the man who had saved them all. The conference room's lights dimmed as Li Jiwon placed his crystal identification card into the central holographic projector. The massive oval table, made from rare Centauri crystal, began to glow with an inner light as data streams flowed across its surface. Round the table sat the department heads of Terra Prime Medical Station, their faces tense with anticipation and fear. Dr. Choi Yuna, the senior medical officer, shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She had worked at the station for 8 years and had watched its transformation from a beacon of hope into something she barely recognized. Beside her, Nurse Kim Minho clutched a data pad containing months of carefully documented incidents, his hands trembling slightly. Park Sunmi sat at the far end of the table, her once pristine uniform now wrinkled with stress. She kept glancing at the emergency exit, as if calculating whether she could escape before the full scope of her actions came to light. Li Jiwon stood at the head of the table, his weathered hands moving over the holographic controls with practiced ease. The same fingers that had once coordinated fleet movements against alien swarms now pulled up patient records and incident reports, the air filled with floating data streams. Each one a story of suffering and neglect. Let's start with the basics, Li Ji once said, his voice cutting through the silence. This medical station was built after the Void Swarm Wars to serve all of humanity. Every credit of funding came from the Galactic Defense Fund, paid for by the blood and sacrifice of every human colony. The first holographic display materialized above the table, showing the station's original charter. The words glowed in golden letters to provide medical care to all human beings, regardless of origin, status, or ability to pay. Yet somehow, Li Ji-won continued, that mission has been forgotten with a gesture. He brought up the first case file. A three-dimensional image of a young girl appeared, her face pale and drawn with illness. The medical readout showed severe radiation poisoning from a mining accident on asteroid station Delta 7, Kangnori, Age 12. Her transport ship arrived here 6 weeks ago after a reactor leak at her family's mining station. She needed immediate treatment for radiation exposure. The hologram showed the girl's deteriorating condition over time. She was turned away because her family couldn't prove they had insurance coverage. Park suddenly started to speak, but Li Ji-won held up his hand for a silence. She died 3 days later aboard a refugee transport ship, while they were trying to reach the charity medical station on level 7. The girl's image faded, replaced by another victim. Treatment here would have saved her life. Nurse Kim Min-ho couldn't stay quiet any longer. He stood up, his data pad shaking in his hands. Sir, I tried to help her. I documented everything. Filed complaint after complaint. But Manager Park said, we couldn't risk our reputation by treating undesirable elements. Sit down, Kim. Park suddenly snapped, but her voice lacked its usual authority. Li Ji-won brought up another case. This time it was an elderly man, his weathered face marked by years of hard labor in the asteroid mines. Park Hyun-woo, veteran of the Mars terraforming project, came here with lung disease from breathing processed atmosphere for 40 years, turned away because he looked like a vagrant. The holographic display showed security footage of the man being escorted out by guards, his coughing fits echoing through the lobby. He collapsed in the corridor outside and died before emergency services could reach him. Dr. Choi Yuna covered her face with her hands. She had seen Park Hyun-woo being removed and had wanted to help, but the station's policies had tied hands. I've lost count of how many good doctors and nurses have quit because of these policies, she said quietly. Dr. Song Won-ho resigned last month. He said he couldn't work at a place that had forgotten what medicine was supposed to be about. Li Ji-won nodded grimly. I know. I received his resignation letter, along with 17 others in the past 6 months. 17 medical professionals who couldn't stand to watch people die for lack of compassion. The holographic display shifted to show staff turnover rates, patient complaint statistics, and mortality data. The numbers painted a stark picture of a medical facility in moral decline. Red warning indicators flashed round, statistics showing increased death rates among refugee populations and outer colony workers. But the most damning evidence, Li Ji-won said, bringing up a new display, comes from your own security systems. The room filled with audio recordings of Park Sun-mi's voice captured by the station's monitoring systems. Her words echoed through the conference room with crystal clarity. We can't have these people cluttering up our lobby. Our wealthy patients expect a certain standard. Another recording played. Turn away anyone who doesn't look like they can. Hey, I don't care if they're dying. Park Sun-mi's face went white as she heard her own words played back. She had forgotten that the station's AI systems recorded everything for quality control purposes. Manager Park, Li Ji-won said, his voice as cold as the vacuum between stars. You turned this place into something that would make the Void Swarm proud. They tried to exterminate humanity through violence. You've been doing it through neglect, The holographic display showed the final, most devastating piece of evidence. It was a compilation of every patient who had been turned away, every person who had died while seeking help, every family torn apart by the station's discriminatory policies. The faces floated round the room like ghosts, a silent accusation that filled the air with their presence. Nurse Kim Minho stood again, his voice stronger now. Sir, there are others who wanted to speak out but were afraid. The AI custodial units have been programmed to report on staff who tried to help unauthorized. Patients, people were scared of losing their jobs. Dr. Choi Yuna added, the medical supply replicators were restricted. Even basic medications were locked behind authorization codes. We couldn't treat emergency cases without Manager Park's personal approval. Park. Sunmi finally found her voice, desperation creeping into her tone. You don't understand the pressures we face. The board demands profit margins. The wealthy patients expect exclusivity. I was just following corporate guidelines. Lee Ji-won's expression didn't change. I am the board now, and these aren't corporate guidelines. These are the actions of someone who forgot that every human life has value, regardless of where they come from or how much money they have. The evidence continued to mount, each piece more damning than the last. The silence in the conference room was deafening as Lee Ji-won's words hung in the air like a death sentence. The holographic evidence still floated around them, casting eerie shadows on the faces of everyone present. Through the massive viewport, a medical transport ship was approaching the station, its emergency lights flashing as it carried wounded miners from the Outer Rim colonies. Manager Park, you're terminated immediately, Lee Ji-won announced, his voice carrying the same finality that had once condemned alien battle fleets to destruction. Yes. Security will escort you from the station. Within the hour, legal proceedings will follow. Park Sunmi's chair scraped against the floor as she shot to her feet, her face flushed with anger and desperation. You can't do this. I've given 12 years of my life to this station. The board will hear about this. I am the board, Lee Ji-won replied calmly. He gestured to the holographic display, which now showed official termination documents bearing the seal of Terror Prime Medical Corporation. Your access codes are already being revoked. Your personal effects will be shipped to your registered address on Earth. As if summoned by his words, the conference room doors slid open with a soft hiss. Guard Captain Han Seok entered, flanked by two security officers. The same guards who had once been ready to drag Lee Ji-won away now stood at attention, waiting to escort Park Sunmi from the station. This is outrageous, Park Sunmi shrieked, her composure finally cracking completely. I was protecting the station's reputation. Our wealthy clients expect a certain standard. Dr. Choi Yuna, who had remained silent throughout the proceedings, finally spoke up. Her voice was quiet but firm. Your standards killed innocent people, Sunmi. I've watched you destroy everything this place was supposed to represent. The medical transport ship outside had finished docking, and through the viewport, they could see emergency teams rushing toward the airlock with stretchers. Injured miners from a recent asteroid collision were being brought aboard, their faces covered with oxygen masks, their bodies broken from the harsh realities of life in the outer colonies. Lee Ji-won watched the rescue operation with the same intensity he had once observed alien battle. Formations, look at them, he said, pointing toward the wounded being carried past the viewport. Those are human beings who risk their lives every day to keep our civilization running. They mine the asteroids that power our ships, harvest the rare minerals that build our weapons, and they do it knowing that one accident could end their lives. He turned back to Park Sunmi, his dark eyes reflecting the cold light of distant stars. And when they come here seeking help, you turn them away because they don't look wealthy enough for your precious reputation. Park Sunmi's security escort moved closer, their patience wearing thin. Guard Captain Honsiok had served in the Void, sworn wars, and had seen too many good people die to have any sympathy for someone who would deny medical care to those in need. "Ma'am, please come with us," Honsiok said firmly. "Don't make this more difficult than it needs to be." Park Sunmi looked round the room desperately, seeking support from her former colleagues. But the other department heads avoided her gaze, their faces showing a mixture of relief and shame. They had all known what was happening, but none had found the courage to speak up until now. "Dr. Choi," Li Ji-won said, turning to the senior medical officer, "you're promoted to chief medical officer, effective immediately. Your first priority is to ensure that every patient receives the care they need, regardless of their ability to pay." Double quotes. Dr. Choi Yuna's eyes widened with surprise and responsibility. She had dreamed of this moment for years, but never imagined it would come under such circumstances. "Yes, sir. I won't let you down." Nurse Kim Min-ho, Lee Ji-won continued, "You're appointed as head of patient advocacy. Your job is to ensure that no one falls through the cracks again. You've already proven you have the courage to stand up for what's right." Kim Min-ho's hands trembled as he realized the magnitude of his new position. He had been documenting injustices for months, never imagining that his reports would lead to this moment. "Sir, I don't know if I'm qualified for such a position." "You're qualified because you care," Lee Ji-won replied. "In the war, we learned that technical skills can be taught, but integrity comes from within. You've already shown more integrity than most people in positions of power." The security team was now escorting Park Sun-mi toward the door, but she turned back one last time, her voice filled with venom. "You think you can change everything overnight? This station has procedures, protocols, established relationships with important clients. You'll destroy everything we've built." Lee Ji-won's expression didn't change. "Good, because what you built was a monument to human cruelty. We're going to tear it down and build something better." As Park Sun-mi was led away, her protests echoing down the corridor, Lee Ji-won activated the station's internal communication system. His voice would now reach every corner of the medical facility, from the luxury suites where wealthy patients recovered to the service tunnels where maintenance crews worked. "Attention all personnel." His voice boomed through the speakers. "This is Chairman Lee Ji-won. Effective immediately, Terra Prime Medical Station is returning to its original mission. We will provide medical care to all human beings, regardless of their origin, status, or ability to pay." Throughout the station, medical staff paused in their work to listen. In the emergency bay, doctors who had been forced to turn away patients felt a surge of hope. In the service areas, custodial staff who had witnessed the discrimination firsthand looked up with surprise and relief. This medical station was built to serve all of humanity. Lee Ji-won continued, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had once united the scattered colonies against extinction. The same humanity that stood together when alien swarms threatened to destroy everything we had built. We fought as one species, and we survived as one species. We don't abandon our own. The changes began immediately. Lee Ji-won pulled up the station's operational protocols on his holographic display, deleting discriminatory policies with swift keystrokes. Access restrictions were removed from medical supply replicators. Emergency treatment protocols were updated to prioritize medical need over financial status. Dr. Choi, I want you to contact every medical professional who resigned in protest over the past year. Lee Ji-won instructed, offer them their jobs back with full benefits and a formal apology. We're going to need all the help we can get outside the viewport. More transport ships were arriving. Word was already spreading through the outer colonies that Terra Prime Medical Station was under new management. Ships that had been diverted to lesser facilities were now changing course, bringing patients who had been waiting months for treatment. And Kim Min-ho, Lee Ji-won added, "I want you to establish a memorial wall for everyone who died because they were denied care. Their names will be displayed prominently. So we never forget the cost of abandoning our principles." The transformation had begun, guided by the same principles that had once saved humanity from extinction among the stars. 6 months had passed since the day everything changed at Terra Prime Medical Station, the morning. Sun of the nearby star cast golden light through the massive observation deck windows, illuminating a scene that would have been impossible under Park Sun-mi's reign of discrimination. Lee Ji-won stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the steady stream of spacecraft approaching the station's multiple docking bays. A sleek medical frigate from the Andromeda colonies was just completing its docking sequence, its house guard from the recent battle against Zephyrian raiders. The ship's emergency beacon indicated they carried wounded defenders who had protected the outer settlements from alien attack. Next to it, a humble transport vessel from the Saturn mining rings waited patiently for clearance, bringing workers injured in a recent excavation accident. The contrast was striking. Under the old system, only the military vessel would have been granted immediate access, while the miners would have been turned away or forced to wait for days. Now, both ships were processed based purely on medical urgency, their patients triaged by need rather than status. Dr. Cho Yuna approached Lee Ji-won, her footsteps soft against the polished deck. She carried a holographic data pad displaying the station's latest performance metrics, her face glowing with pride and exhaustion. The past 6 months had been the most challenging and rewarding of her medical career. "Chairmanly," she said, her voice filled with quiet satisfaction. "Patient satisfaction ratings are at 98%. We're treating 3 times as many patients as we did under the previous administration, and our mortality rates have dropped by 40%. Lee Ji-won turned from the viewport, his weathered face breaking into a rare smile. The same man who had once stared down alien hive ships now found equal satisfaction in these peaceful statistics. "Show me the breakdown by demographic, Doctor." The holographic display expanded between them, showing treatment statistics organized by patient origin, outer rim miners, inner system executives, military personnel, civilian transport crews, and refugee families were all represented in equal measure. The data streams flowed like rivers of light, each number representing a life saved or improved. "The most remarkable change," Dr. Choi Yuna continued, "is in our emergency response times. We're now treating critical patients within minutes of arrival, regardless of their background. Last week, we saved a Martian diplomat and an asteroid prospector in the same hour, using the same level of care for both." Through the observation deck's transparent aluminum walls, they could see the bustling activity of the station's medical bays. Automated surgical units moved with precision between operating theaters, while medical drones delivered supplies and medications to every corner of the facility. The artificial gravity generators hummed softly, maintaining perfect Earth-normal conditions for optimal healing. A new arrival caught Lee Ji-won's attention. A massive hospital ship was approaching from the direction of the Kepler system, its white hull marked with the red cross of the Galactic Medical Corps. The vessel was 3 times larger than most transports, designed to carry hundreds of patients across interstellar distances. "That's the GSS Compassion," Dr. Choi Yuna noted, following his gaze. "They're bringing survivors from the recent void crystal mining disaster on Kepler 4b. 47 miners were trapped underground for 2 weeks after a cave-in. They are all suffering from radiation exposure and decompression injuries." Lee Ji-won's expression grew serious. He remembered Kepler 4 to be well. It was one of the worlds he had helped defend during the void. Swarm Wars, the mining operation there, extracted the rare crystals used in faster-than-light communications, making it vital to human civilization's expansion across the galaxy. 6 months ago, those miners would have been turned away. He said quietly, Park Sunmi would have claimed they were too expensive to treat, too risky for the station's reputation instead. We've prepared our entire trauma department for their arrival, Dr. Choi Yuna replied. Dr. Park Jin-young returned from his research position on Europa specifically to help with their treatment. He said he couldn't pass up the chance to work at a facility that finally lived up to its ideals. The mention of Dr. Park Jin-young brought back memories of the early days of transformation. He had been one of 17 medical professionals who had resigned in protest under the previous administration. When Lee Ji-won reached out to invite them back, the response had been overwhelming. Not only did most of the resigned staff return, but they brought colleagues from across human space who wanted to be part of the station's new mission. Nurse Kim Min-ho appeared in the observation deck, his uniform bearing the new insignia of head of patient advocacy. In his hands was a tablet displaying the day's patient intake reports, but his face showed the satisfaction of someone who finally felt his work had meaning. Chairman, Dr. Choi. He said with a respectful bow, the memorial wall dedication ceremony is ready to begin. The families of those we lost arriving for the unveiling. Lee Ji-won nodded solemnly. The memorial wall had been his idea, a permanent reminder of the cost of abandoning humanity's core values. Engraved on black crystal were the names of every person who had died after being denied care, each name surrounded by details of their life and service to human civilization. As they walked toward the ceremony, the trio passed through corridors that buzzed with activity. Medical students from the prestigious Lunar University were completing rotations, learning from the station's diverse patient population. Researchers from across the galaxy had requested positions at Terra Prime, drawn by its reputation for innovative treatments and ethical practices. The irony, Dr. Choi Yun observed as they walked, is that by opening our doors to everyone, we've actually attracted more wealthy patients than ever before. Word has spread that we provide the highest quality care in human space, regardless of who you are. Lee Ji-won chuckled softly. It turns out that excellence and compassion aren't mutually exclusive. Who would have thought? They paused at an intersection where a group of medical technicians was installing a new piece of equipment, an advanced neuroregeneration unit that could repair brain damage from oxygen deprivation. The device had been donated by the Titan Corporation after their CEO's daughter was successfully treated at the station following a spacecraft accident. The medical community is calling it the Terra Prime model, Kim Min-ho added. 3 other medical stations have requested consultations on implementing similar policies. The Galactic Medical Council is considering making it the standard for all publicly funded facilities. As they reached the memorial wall, Lee Ji-won reflected on how much had changed. The station that had once been a symbol of human prejudice and discrimination had become a beacon of hope and unity. Patients from every corner of human space sought treatment here, and medical professionals competed for the chance to work alongside the galaxy's finest healers. The ceremony began with a moment of silence for the lost, followed by speeches from families who had suffered under the old system. But the tone was not one of anger or revenge. It was one of determination to ensure such tragedies never happened again. In the war, Lee Ji-won said during his address, "We learned that humanity's greatest strength comes from unity. Every person we save makes us stronger as a species. Every life we protect adds to our collective wisdom and resilience." The station hummed with activity around them, humans from dozens of worlds working together, healing and helping each other, just as they had when facing the darkness between the stars. It was humanity at its finest, and Lee Ji-won knew that. This was a victory more important than any battle he had won against alien invaders. The end.